Yo, what's up, y'all? Peace, fam. This is Dr. Craig Waleed, and you're tuned into Prison to Promise, where we spotlight stories of transformation and hope. Today's episode features the good brother Phillip A. Jones, a currently incarcerated advocate, educator, and founder of the Inside Outside Consults Group. We recorded this conversation back in March 2025, but because of delays on my end, it's just now being released. Nevertheless, Philip's story is as relevant and inspiring today as it's ever been. He speaks on his journey from incarceration to advocacy, the impact of education and mentorship, and the importance of second chances. Now, let's get into it. Here's my conversation with the good brother Phillip A. Jones. Now, let's go. Brother Phillip's in the room.
Yes.
Hi, brother. How you doing?
Hey, brother, I'm good, man. Pleasure to be talking to you once again. How are you?
Man, I'm holding, man. You know what I mean? Maintaining, man, and keeping my vision, man.
Yeah,
My
we'll
focus.
continue to hold on. Yeah.
Absolutely.
So let's dive right in. You heard?
hmm
So maybe you can start off by introducing yourself, telling us a little bit about who you are, where you are.
My name is Phillip A. Jones. I'm from Baltimore City. Incarcerated right now in the state of Washington. Been locked up for 34 years. I came into prison at the age of 19. Um, just a little bit about myself. I'm a person, man, that likes to stay active and engage in any kind of way that promotes change. I come from a storied background, and life was difficult, but you know, we always try to turn our lemons into lemonade, man. You know what I mean? That's what I always been taught. So I just do that and keep it pushing.
Yeah, right on, man. Thanks for sharing that. And that's a great segue, especially talking about taking the lemons that we've been given for life and making lemonade. And so, you've been down for a minute, but definitely sounds like you've done some things to transform yourself while in prison. So, can you talk a little bit about how you began your journey of self-reflection and personal transformation while you've been locked up?
Yeah, man. That's a good question. In 1996, I was sent to the Maryland Supermax. It's been torn down since, but I was involved in a gang riot where a lot of people got hurt. And at the time, I was 24 years old. I ended up staying in the Supermax for 5 years because of my behavior and because of the fact that I was still who I used to be. While I was there, mainly out of boredom, from being in solitary confinement for 23 hours a day, I began to read a lot. So I read all the books that I could get my hands on. Anytime somebody asked me what I need, I told them I need a book.
Mm-hmm.
Um, so for me, I would write and I would read all day. And I was also able to hear the madness of the unstable people who was on the tier with me, and I just blocked out that screaming and yelling, man. It's a lot of people that have mental health issues inside of these supermax facilities. Um, so I enmeshed myself in books. It was at that time that I began to notice that my values started changing, and my old ways of thinking no longer made sense to me. Um, so fast forward 5 years upon my release from the supermax, I was involuntarily transferred to the state of Washington, and because of the new environment, it gave me a chance to focus. Um, and that was the starting point of my transformation because I had no gang ties here. I took
Mm-hmm.
advantage of that fact that I didn't know anyone and I owed no obligation to anyone besides myself and my family. And I never looked back from that point. I enrolled in college. I completed all the certified programs they had to offer. I began teaching classes and mentoring other young men about the pitfalls of joining gangs.
Right on. And it's like, man, you're reading my mind, bro, because I think you're going right into another area that I think is very important. I would like to talk a little more about solitary confinement, but I know we don't have a lot of time. But maybe just real briefly, if you could just touch on How did you avoid falling into the madness while you were in the supermax for 5 years? Whereas many people, if they don't already have psychological disorders, they develop them or they get worse in solitary. How did you avoid that and came out stronger, it seems?
I wouldn't say here that I was unaffected. I was affected, but
Hmm.
withdrew. I kind of withdrew because of it. So I would board myself up, and I would like basically put myself into my own uh like Shiloh,
Mm.
so to speak. I would try to like stuff stuff into the cracks and everything, so I didn't hear it because I didn't want to be absorbed by it. Um, and so for me, it was a form of meditation, so to speak. I would talk to people when I would come
Hmm.
out for my exercise periods and stuff like that for an hour.
Hmm.
But I really, when it was hollering and screaming, man, it was reminding me of a lot of trauma, man. And I was like,
Yeah.
man, I didn't like it at all. So I would try to just drown it out. And the way I drown it out, I'd put on a pair of earbuds or something like that. And then I'd keep doing something that takes me outside of my environment, man. So that's how I was able to survive it. And also by working out. And just remembering, man, that I'm young. This all too will pass.
Mm.
I'm gonna see the other side. So don't succumb to you know uh, to that aspect of mental illness.
Yeah, that's power, man. That speaks strength to power right there. I appreciate hearing that. And anybody that listens to this who's going through anything like that, um, solitary or that isolation confinement, hopefully they can draw from this and find a way out and through for themselves. But you also, in your last piece, spoke about beginning to mentor young men when you found that you didn't have, those gang ties and you began to proliferate and grow in another area. Can you speak a little bit about the role mentorship played in your life, both as a mentee and as a mentor? And I say that because in order for you to become a mentor, I'm thinking someone showed you some light too.
Hey man, absolutely. I love that question. For starters, we all have to be mentees before we
Mm.
can ever expect to mentor anyone. Um, and for me, early on, coming up in the Maryland Penitentiary, there was a lot of older individuals, man, who was highly educated. They were sharp, man. They knew all the policies, man. They took all the classes. They had degrees, and I kind of look up to these guys, man, to this day because he set me on the right course. And he
Mm.
told me, man, take advantage of your situation. Don't let your situation take advantage of you. So one of the first things they did was they encouraged me to become the president of the youth council. So I didn't know what I was doing. I never had the experience. But I learned, how to communicate. I learned how to represent. I learned how to speak. I learned how to put together proposals. They taught me all this. So there was two programs also that prepared me for what would later be my foundation of mentorship. One was called the Redemption X, and the other was called Release Readiness. In these programs, we was asked to go back in time to our childhoods and examine the root causes of the traumas that we all had suffered. We identified what went wrong, we challenged our decision making, and we learned about positive core values. The best part about these programs was that upon a graduation, it wasn't just about a certificate. It was also about becoming a mentor for the next group of men who took the class. And this would reinforce what we had already learned. So me teaching the class over and over, these things became instilled in my character. Um, so now, fast forward again, I teach reentry, and I use my own workbook to prepare other incarcerated individuals for a successful return to society. And I also use my other book called From Risk to Resilience so that I can point out these pitfalls that came in my life when I joined the gang. Because the goal is to provide guidance through peer support, which is what I do. Because I've been where they are, and so I know where to waste them, and I definitely know how to prevent certain consequences from occurring in other young men's lives.
Right on. And we know that that peer-to-peer education is most powerful, especially when there's somebody who's been through it like you and you can identify with them, so I could dig
Mhm.
that. You spoke about your books, man. Have you written some books?
Yes, I have. I actually written two books of my own, and then I co-authored two others. My books
Mhm.
are From Exit to Excellence, which is a reentry workbook. It talks about the trauma. It begins with that because we all know that unless you address your trauma, it doesn't matter that you have a house to go to or a job awaiting you. You're most likely going to recidivate. So we
Yes.
had to address the traumas and what went wrong. That was my books breaks down. So I try to make it different than the other reentry books. And then my next book is because of my experience called From Risk to Resilience. And this book is a gang prevention manual. I know why I joined. I know what it was, the vacuum that was left in my life because my family was unstable. And so we go out there and search for that. And then those people who are around us, those are our reference point. They're going through the same things we're going through. And so we join forces. We gravitate towards each other, even if it is a self destructive pattern. So
Mhm.
I wrote those books because I wanted to give back. The reentry book was so that I could show that even though I have this astronomical sentence, I'm still prepared because I understand what it takes and I know how to reenter when the time comes, when my opportunity presents, when my second chance arrives. And
Yes.
then the book to save another youth from going down that path I did because that path for me was arduous and it was destructive, not only just to myself, but my loved ones. So I wanted to save one person, and if I could, I felt like I had achieved a great victory.
Hmm. Powerful, bro. Powerful. And where can people find your books?
They can get it on Amazon or they can go to my website, Phillip A. Jones Consulting LLC. Either you can order it from me or you can go and get it from Amazon, whichever way is easier.
Right on, man. Right on. That's pretty dope, man. Especially you talking about wanting to save people. Not many people want to save those of us who've been incarcerated, except for those of us who've been incarcerated. It seems like those are the ones who want to save others from going through the same hellfire that we've been through. You know what I'm saying?
Mhm.
Yeah.
Mhm. For sure.
There was there was something else you had mentioned, man, but it slips my 55-year-old mind right now, so I can't draw back right now. But but yo, moving forward though, man, I'm really impressed by the fact that you're incarcerated. You've been incarcerated for a good minute, but you're still working on making yourself better. And that's where I was going with that question. I forgot. You know, you're continuing to prepare yourself to be ready, so when the time comes, you don't have to get ready. And so
Mhm.
that's admirable as well. But one of the things I want to ask though is like, what motivated you to become the advocate that you are, particularly focusing on trauma and things of that nature versus anything else? What motivated you to start advocating and working on trying to save other people?
For sure. If I'm being completely honest, when I started doing this work, it wasn't with the mindset of becoming an advocate of criminal justice reform. It was
Hmm.
more so mental health in prison. I had did a panel on Zoom about mental health, and afterwards, my network was like, that got a lot of reaction. And for me, I needed people to be aware of what kinds of psychological issues came from
Yeah.
being in prison.
Hmm.
So it began as prison reform for me. I wanted the environment I had to be in to serve me and those around me. Um, we wanted to be healthy. And so it morphed into something bigger as time went by. And I was focused on going back to my community um, so that I could contribute in a meaningful way. Uh, so I begin to think about people serving decades in prison and what point does this become detrimental to the human psyche.
Yeah.
Every day, I'd seek greater necessity for change through this judicial system because it was producing more damage, in my opinion, than healing. I wanted to be a part of that solution. Since
Yeah.
I sit in this space, and by me sitting in this space, it motivates me to want to see some changes take place. So that's why I broaden my scope, and now I focus in on those type of things as well. So it's a whole criminal justice reform, but in the beginning, it was simply uh, prison reform.
Yeah. Right on. Thanks for that. And wanting the space that you have to occupy to be healthy, I think is normal. And we know that prisons typically are not healthy. And not only those of us who live in prisons end up suffering all types of psychological, emotional, physiological consequences, but the people that work there also are suffering. And so that in and of itself would make you think that the people who are making the decisions would be head over heels to try to reform the conditions in prison and make them healthier for everybody that's in that space. You know what I mean?
For sure. You think about it, man. Even the correctional officers and, like you said, the people that work in these environments, they have a high rate of alcoholism, divorce,
Mhm.
suicide. Man,
Mhm.
it's rough on everyone, man. It's not just
Yeah.
those that's incarcerated here, but those who have to work in this space as well. And I recognize that.
And that's what other people need to recognize again, especially those decision makers who think they're doing the public a favor by being hard on people who are incarcerated. But tell me this, Brother Phillip, in your opinion, what's the most important thing um, we can do as a society to provide second chances for people coming out of prison?
Um, I think, man, that's a good question. I think to begin, we can treat people like God's prodigal children. If you really, if you think about the prodigal son, we could treat
Hmm.
people more like that.
Yeah.
Welcome them back to their communities with open arms. Provide resources. Hire them in the workforce if you expect for them to succeed, and
Yeah.
show them how to do what they may not have had a chance to learn while being incarcerated. Don't shun them. Uh,
Hmm.
don't treat them as less than. Uh, because you got to understand these are your people, and
Hmm.
you should never throw away your people. And so when they come back, they will succeed if you wrap your arms around them and embrace them as opposed to shunning them.
Yeah, man. And I think that's a mouthful right there because society has been taught to be afraid of people who've been convicted of crime or people who have mental illness or addictions. But like you said, they need to be embraced and they need to be shown the way. They not shunned. Because as we know, when people are shunned and they cut off from resources, they're bound to do the same things over again that got them locked up.
Absolutely.
So check this out, right? So like
Hmm.
the name of or the theme of my podcast is Prison to Promise, as you
Hmm.
know. It's all about turning adversity into opportunity. Pretty much what you talked about turning lemons into lemonade. So, how do you view your own transformation in that context, going from prison to promise and turning adversity into opportunity? How do you view your own transformation in that context?
Man, I love that question. I don't see it as nothing special. I see it as doing what I should have been doing from the beginning, and I'm simply, learning how to be an upright human being. Um,
Yeah.
it was a combination of things for me. Maturity being the first. I kind of outgrew my adolescent ways. Because when you think like a child, when you are a child and think like a child, you act like a child. So I kind of outgrew the adolescent ways, and through education, I was able to learn what core values are. Education is the catalyst, in my opinion, for human evolution. Um, and I did better when I knew better, man.
Mm-hmm. Right on, man. I could dig that. And I like how you talked about those 2 points that I'm going to point out. One is you matured, and then the other one is education. And we know that as people get older, they mellow out, they wisen up. And I think that the science behind that is, especially when it comes to this criminal legal system, they call it desistance. You know, when we start to
Mm-hmm.
change our identity from that of a gang member or a D-boy or whatever to a
Mm-hmm.
mature adult striving to live life on life's terms, so that really like just hits the spot for me, you know. But then the other point, again, there goes my 55-year-old mind slipping, slipping,
Mm-hmm.
you know what I mean? I can't grasp the other piece I was about to hit. But
I think.
at any at any rate, let's just keep rolling, man, because I'll spend forever just trying to pull back that thread, and it's slipping further and further in the abyss. You know how it gets, man. But
Man, it's all gravy.
right on, baby. So tell the listeners, man, and I guess maybe if you could, just talk a little bit about what your goals are for the future, both personally and in your work in other systems.
At first, I wanted to just consult with policymakers to like basically change the landscape of prison to make the environment more humane, so to speak. Um, but I was kind of short sighted in that. And we've completely revamped. And now we have a different focus, and that focus is educating young people. So we have a scholarship program, man, which is sponsored by a nonprofit. And we set this up so that we could pinpoint at-risk youth, that's most likely to be recruited into a gang. And what
Mhm.
we'll do is we'll pick the ones who have resisted that urge and they're still trying to learn and educate themselves on a higher level. And so we will pay at least three tuitions for these kids, man, at least once a year. And that's a big one for me. Their scholastic achievement needs to be rewarded. And so there's where we fill in the gap because that goes more to anything that I really represent because I was them and I didn't have that. So for me, this is major and I'm very proud of that effort.
Yeah. Thanks for sharing that. And as you shared that, it allowed me to recapture where I was going with that lost thought, which was looking at education. And because you just talked about the importance of that, and that's what sparked my initial thinking when you said education is the catalyst for all of this. And so we know and understand that research shows that when, especially people who are engaged with the criminal legal system, when they have proficiency in education, vocation, that they have lower rates of recidivism and et cetera, should I say. But at any rate,
Mm-hmm,
I also think about like the etymology of this word educate, because yeah, we go to school and we do like academic work, and yeah, we know that that helps us to become more receptive to different ways of living. But when I think about the etymology of education, or the word educate, it comes from this root word, this Latin word, educere or educo, which means to tap in and bring forth that which is within. So it speaks to me about helping people to tap into their own natural proclivities and becoming the best version of themselves that they can be. And so anything outside of that is training. So I think academic training and education, and that true education is knowledge of self. As we know, the ancient Egyptians once always touted the phrase, before you learn anything, man, know thyself. And so when you say that, it just brings those things up, or those memories for me from my own past studies and my own life's experiences. So um, just big ups, man. Big ups again. I'm really loving this conversation.
hey man, I love what you just said, man, and it just goes to reinforce what I believe is that when a person educates themselves, they are able to transform themselves because their brain begins to see things in a wholly different way. And
Yeah.
so all the things that you saw coming up in your hood, if you didn't have anybody to show you, all of the movies that you watch, all of the culture that comes in the inner city,
Hmm.
that all was information that was misleading to us because it was taking us nowhere but into places like these. And
Hmm.
so like you said, education is unlocked. It goes with you go within and then you will pull what's in there out. It's there, you just need to tap into it.
And the image I get, man, when we talk about education is like that of a farmer with their tractor tilling the soil, turning the soil over, preparing it to be receptive to new seeds for new growth. You know what I mean? And then,
Absolutely.
and then Bob Marley, I'm always reminded of Bob. That's one of my favorite artists. He quoted Marcus Mosiah Garvey in one of his songs, and this goes right along with what we're talking about right here. And he said, "Emancipate yourself from mental slavery. None but ourselves can free our minds."
Mm. Woo, that's powerful.
So, brother, we're coming up near the end of our
Hmm.
time together. Is there
Okay.
anything that I failed to touch on that you would like to touch on?
Yeah, I definitely, brother. I'm glad that you gave me this opportunity, man. I want to give some advice to those who are still inside, as they feel they may have lost hope and purpose. So let me just say, don't give up on yourself and don't give up hope. Every day you have a new opportunity for you to reinvent yourself, and you can find a cause to believe in and therefore to fight for. The one constant in the universe is change, and change can happen suddenly or at any moment. So continue to push forward, and if you feel alone, you can reach out to someone who is doing what you would like to be doing as a motivation and encouragement. Because I know what you're going through, and because of it, I feel you.
Right on. Wow, brother. You know, that's really one of the things I was going to ask you, but I knew that we were coming out of at the end of time, so I wanted to give you some time to spit. And that is exactly what I was going to ask you. What advice would you give? You know, so that says to me that, man, we are, moving on a similar vibration, you know?
For sure. Absolutely, man. I always have a lot to say, man, because I know that there's so much needed to be said, but I try to keep it focused. Um, yeah, I do what I do, man, and I'm happy to be invited on shows like yours
Yeah.
because I want people to know, man, that humanity still lives here. I
Hmm.
want people to know that you ain't going to tell me that 2 million people are lost causes. And I
That's right.
also want you to know that anyone can redeem themselves if they choose. Um, you said something about Marcus Garvey. I used to like when he said, up, up, you mighty race, and you can
Yeah.
accomplish what you will. So
Hmm.
there's nothing that can stop you or prevent you from becoming who you want to become. That's all you got to do is apply yourself, and that's all you got to do is practice it. Because the
Yeah,
more you
man.
practice it, the better you become. And one last thing,
Yeah.
I do what I do not just for myself.
Hmm.
I lost a lot of years, but I do what I
You
do
have 1 minute
because
left.
I realize that they gave me this time, and they expect me to fail a lot of times. And so I want to give. I don't ever want to give them the opportunity to say, "Oh, he does not deserve a second chance." And so it's very important that I pay attention to my movements and the things that I'm doing, so that there is no excuse. I've done my time, and I've tried to do it in a way that was good and that was wholesome. You know what I mean?
So, despite your circumstances, brother, you are still succeeding. I wish you all the best, and let's stay in touch. You heard?
Most definitely, man. Thank you, man, and stay up, man, and everybody out there, man, that was listening. You know, get involved. You know, play your
Right
role.
on.
Get in the business of making change around here. Man, you have a good day, man, and take care of yourself, brother, because I know you're out there doing some amazing things.
Thank you for using Securus. Goodbye.
Hey, if you or someone you know would like to be a guest on the Prison to Promise podcast, please contact me at drcraigwaleed@gmail.com. I'll spell it out. That's DRCRAIGWALEE as in Edward, D as in David at gmail.com. Dr. Craig Waleed, DRCRAIGWALEED at gmail.com. Thanks for hanging out with us here on the Prison to Promise podcast. Peace.